You are listening to Fantasy Filmball with Matt and Dylan, and on this show, we turn movies into sports and look at all the Oscar prospects and their fantasy value.
I believe that this is going to win Best Picture, and here's why.
I mean, Denis Villeneuve got all the nominations he needed for Dune and still missed out on the Best Director slot.
Don't let me get my hopes up. The Academy has disappointed me too many times.
Thank you to the Academy. Thank you to all of you in this room.
I can't remember the last time I walked out of a movie theater on such a high.
No matter how certain it seems, anything can happen on nominations morning.
Never count the Golden Globes for just doing something off the walls and bonkers.
It's the kind of movie that reminds me of why I fell in love with movies.
And the Oscar goes to...
Welcome into episode 17 of Fantasy Filmball. My name is Dyl.
And my name is Matt, and this is the show where we turn movies into sports and sports into something that we don't talk about here. And today, we are so excited to be here talking about, it's a normal week. This is a normal week. Things haven't gone insane this week. It feels good. It feels good to have some stability for like one goddamn week. No one was moved supporting this week. That's great.
I mean, yes, not having to frantically redo all your rankings right before recording is always a blessing. Because, I mean, like, we were just talking before that we started recording, and like the last week, not much has really happened, like Matt was just saying. And, like, most of the categories where you had, like, 7 days ago, you can kind of keep everything the same. Because, yes, some stuff has come out, but some stuff that came out maybe did what you thought or maybe underperformed, overperformed, but nothing overtly, like, mega changed. But we still have a lot to talk about today.
We do. I mean, one thing for sure in terms of underperforming, we're going to talk about this movie. I know we both really enjoyed this movie, but we're going to talk about Bros later, which did underperform at the box office, which I think is like the biggest change of the week, because there's been a lot of talk about Bros getting into screenplay or breaking into Oscars in that way. And yeah, it did not do well at the box office, which I definitely did not fully see coming.
I mean, I could see the angle for it underperforming, but not by this much. I still thought, like, it would be competing with Smile for, like, the top spot of the box office around, like, 15, 20 million, and Bros is looking like it's going to make, like, 5, and that's, like, being generous.
Yeah, but it's such a great rom-com, and we are going to talk about it later. And we're going to talk about a lot of comedies today, because today, as we were planning to do last week, we are going to talk Golden Globes and talk Golden Globes comedy, and then that plan got derailed by the insanity with Michelle Williams. But this week we're actually talking comedy, and in the spirit of talking comedy, in the spirit of Bros, we're gonna start this week off by talking about rom-coms. What's your favorite romantic comedy of all time?
I mean, you talk about Bros being great. Bros is definitely one of the best ones of recent time, and I had to think about what was my favorite rom-com before Bros, like in like chronological order, and I think Bros is the best rom-com since one of my favorite rom-coms of all time being Game Night with Jason Bateman and Rachel McAdams, which is just a great just movie. Maybe rom-com may not be the best term to describe it, but it's definitely a romantic comedy with some extra stuff added in, and both of them deliver great performances. Honestly, that's one of the best comedy movies I've seen overall. But there's another one who, when I was like writing these down, I didn't really like think of, but it's one that I know that you would put at the top of your rom-coms. And which one was that?
My favorite rom-com of all time is La La Land. Obviously, it is one of the best. It's so good. It's just the perfect balance of romance and heartwarming with heartbreak and just all the feelings, especially that ending. That's, I think, one of the greatest romance endings of all time. But I don't know. Would you call La La Land like a rom-com? Because I don't know if I would.
I don't know either. That's one of the reasons why it didn't pop into my head at first. But that is one, if it counts as a rom-com, would definitely be my number one. I feel like it definitely has romantic comedy elements. But I don't know, like, same thing with Game Night. I don't know if Game Night technically would be a rom-com because it has other elements feeding into it as well. So I feel like both of them would count or both of them would not count. You can't really, like, pick and choose with the two.
No, that's what I feel with like a lot of the best romantic comedies, is that they kind of break the formula and give you something a little bit different, which Bros doesn't do. Bros is like a hard-lined rom-com. It hits every beat that you expect, but it does it really well. But definitely a lot of my favorite romantic comedies are films that do break the mold a little bit. Like the other one that came to mind was The Princess Bride, which I would definitely say is a rom-com, but it's also a fantasy adventure with lots of like swashbuckling. Is that a word? Swashbuckling.
We can count it as a word today. We have a lot to get into today, and the first thing, it is technically when we're recording this October 1st, which for those out there who play the film ball game or follow the film ball game, that means it's waiver priorities number 1. And this month has a lot of good stuff because in the last few years, the first waiver is where a lot of big movies that like we didn't really know about, weren't really sure about come draft, get to be picked. And I feel like this year is a lot different. We don't have a Sound of Metal. We don't have a Rescue. We don't have a Pieces of the Woman. We don't have a Borat 2. We have a lot of like, you can like not really go wrong anything here because it's like at least for me, I had like 10 films I was cool with picking, and I had the second priority. But I will hand it over to you, Matt, to talk about what the first priority went to with Austin.
So for this month's waiver draft, we started off, of course, with our waiver drafts. We always go in the reverse order of the standings. And right now, our standings are that Film Drunk is in first place with 552 points. I don't think that's any change from last week. Same with Arno at 522, no change from last week. Followed up by third place, Brother Bro at 375 points. Then neck and neck, it is me and you, Dylan. I'm at fourth place with 346, and you're at fifth place with 344 points. So we are absolutely just head-to-head right there. And then in sixth place, we've got Austin with 294 points. And I think what this goes to show at this point, we're all very close together so far. Obviously, there's a lot to come. There's a lot of awards to do. But at this point, we are actually quite balanced out, which is very interesting. So for our waiver draft, we always start with the bottom and we go up so that the biggest films have a chance to fall to the person who needs it the most. And this month, that was Austin. And Austin's choice for a waiver pick was Saint Omer, which is Alice Diop's film. It won the second place, the Silver Lion, at the Venice Film Festival this year. It is highly, highly acclaimed by critics. It is France's official submission to the Oscars. It is an excellent choice. It already has 25 points on the board from Venice, and it's going to get about 95 more points when the Metacritic score drops for it. That is a great, great pick. It's a solid, very strong pick that you can't go wrong with. I honestly wanted to choose this, even though I'm not a big fan of the film.
Definitely. I mean, I feel like these top 3 picks, the 3 that have gone so far, are all picks I'm like, I want these. I don't really know which one I want, and you made this decision. You made this decision a lot harder for me because you had to watch so many movies. Like you just said, you beat me by 2 points. That's just from watching all those movies at TIFF and all the streams that you got this year. So you made me have to decide between these next 2 movies, and I really wanted the one I passed up on. But I was like, you know what? I'll play it safe. Saint Omer was to be my safe pick because it's like you said, it has a guaranteed 120. It's probably going to get to around 200 at the floor. I was like, that's nice to have on your team. The movie I went with is another one I could be like, okay, a guaranteed 150 to 200, and then maybe it can get a little bit more. And that is the Robert Downey Sr. documentary that Netflix just picked up called Senior. This is one where maybe this doesn't have a real shot to win documentary, but I feel like this is one that could show up at all these different branches all throughout the year, being a solid documentary nomination all along the lines. However, I passed up on a film that could be huge, but could be a bust, and it actually had a screening today. So Matt, do you want to tell us why you picked Emancipation?
I picked it because of vibes, dude.
Vibes, you gotta rock out with them.
I picked Emancipation as my choice because, so the way I'm thinking about this draft, there are still a bunch of films on the board that I'm like, yeah, I know that could get about 120 points, 150 points. But when I'm thinking about it, what I'm looking for right now is potential. If I screw this draft up and get something that just zeroes out and does nothing, like, for example, if Emancipation doesn't release this year, that's no worries to me at this point because I can easily regain those points later by picking some random critics darling that has no Oscar chances whatsoever. The reason I picked Emancipation is because it has potential to be big, and we haven't seen it yet. My other picks that I was kind of bouncing between were The Wonder and The Good Nurse, which both went undrafted in our main draft. And with both of those, since they have screened and I've seen both of them, I know, okay, there's a limit for what this can get. It's not gonna go to the Oscars. But with Emancipation, there's still the what if factor. It gives me the same type of feeling that like drafting Malcolm and Marie would have at that time. yeah, it could be nothing, but it also could be huge. It could be something. And with Malcolm and Marie, that film did not turn into something, and it's very likely that this won't. But there's a chance. After I drafted, you said that there had been a screening of this film, right?
There was a screening today in DC with the NAACP, which it seems that the vibes and the buzz of it are positive. We'll have to see how that translates with more eyes being laid on the film with more time to come, because I feel like once this film hits the public, this film could have a little bit of a hard time latching on to catch a good community and catch a good just range of people who want to indulge in a Will Smith movie. Obviously here, we have no issue with Will Smith and what he has putting out. We want to see Emancipation. You drafted it. I wanted it. It's just one, can the Academy get behind it? Can other critics groups? And there's a movie that had a trailer come out this week, actually, that, all the critics, all the Academy members, they're going to love this. And it goes by the name of Hunt, which is a movie you actually got to see. Squid Game Among Us.
That's
trailer,
not where I thought you were going with that.
This trailer broke my brain. I don't know what I watched for a minute and a half. Do I want to watch it?
The movie's gonna
Heck yeah.
fuck you up even more then. If this left you like, what the hell? The movie is going to absolutely ruin your brain. Also, one more thing I want to say about Emancipation. Next week, I will have more to say about Emancipation, because it turns out I have the script on my computer, and I didn't know that.
Wow.
Because it was a script for the Blacklist, and I have all of the Blacklist scripts from 2005 up until 2021 on my computer. So I'm gonna not watch it. I'm gonna read it, and I'm gonna report back, and I'm gonna say, did I make a good choice or not? So we'll see. But yes, with Hunt, this movie's fucking nuts, dude. It's so crazy. It's like, okay. I talked about it before on the show. Did I?
I feel like you maybe mentioned it in brief. Maybe
I maybe mentioned it in passing. I saw this on the first day of TIFF. It was my second movie that I saw, and the entire time I was just like, "What the fuck is happening?" The action scenes are really good. It's one of the most convoluted fucking, like, what is happening? What is happening in this movie? It's so all over the place. Oh my god, the mystery is so it's like if someone like hit The Departed over the head with a baseball bat. It's like a concussed The Departed. That's like all I can describe it as. It's so fucking weird, man.
You're leaving me with so many great transitions I could do. Do I use concussed to talk more about Will Smith? Do I use baseball bat? But the one I want to go with is Sus, because, Among Us, Sus. You know what movie is going to have a lot of people feeling sus? That's Bones and All. Because I've seen two different trailers for this movie, and they give two very different tones and two very different feelings. And I feel like if you watch one movie, you're going in not really knowing what this movie's about, and you watch, you're like, what did I actually just watch? And this other trailer I saw kind of tells you what this movie's about, and it was a little graphic too. Like, I saw this before Bros, and apparently it's a theater exclusive trailer, and this one I'm surprised they went all out with it, because it kind of gives away like what the actual like synopsis of this movie would be, which I've seen a lot of stuff not actually tackle that. So I'm really excited to see what first the reaction of this movie is to a lot of people. It's one that arguably is probably my second most anticipated movie for the rest of the year, behind Avatar, just because of my love for Timothée Chalamet and for Taylor Russell, and just this movie just sounds like up my alley. And Mark Rylance, he's been doing something recently. Like, a lot of people haven't liked his recent performances in like Don't Look Up, but I loved him in Don't Look Up. I loved him in The Phantom of the Opera, and I'll probably love him in Bones and All as well. Matt, have you seen both these trailers, or have you only just seen the one that was online?
I've just seen the one that's online, and it really doesn't, like you said, you made a great point, that they're really not saying what this movie's about, and I've read some synopsis of, like, the book and everything, mostly just because I'm like, what the hell is this movie? And it sounds really interesting. It sounds like a very typical, like, young adult sci-fi novel, except instead of it being like, oh, they're divergent and special, and like they're gonna join a club, and like, oh, they're going to Hogwarts. It's like, no, you're not a wizard, you're a fucking cannibal, and like you're just going out into the wasteland and searching down fresh meat. And it's interesting. Like, it sounds really interesting. And I don't know why all of the marketing materials is completely steering away from, like, telling you what this movie's about. Even just beyond the cannibalism, like, talking about... I can't remember all the details, but I know that in this world, like, it's not set in our world.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. I didn't get anything out of this trailer, with the one that had the Leonard Cohen song and everything. I'm intrigued, but the trailer really didn't give me anything. So you say the theatrical trailer kind of like gives you more of a vibe then.
So yeah, like I feel like most movies nowadays, they have two trailers. They have the more one that's just like the intro one, like, hey, here's who's in this. Here's just like, set. Like the one that usually has like a song in it, like you said, the Leonard Cohen one. And the other trailers are more like plot trailer. Like, here's what the movie's about. Are you down for it? And I didn't know the second trailer existed. So it started off, I saw the logo, I was like, oh, Bones and All, let's go. And then I saw the first shot. I was like, oh, this is different. And it has what I feel like I've read from people online what is the first scene of the movie, because I've seen some people say the first scene of the movie is like a graphic scene and something plays out and like, oh, I didn't think I was going to get this in a trailer, or I didn't think I was going to get this at a movie theater per se, and then the rest of the trailer plays. And this trailer more focuses on Taylor Russell and Mark Rylance's characters, which I think will have a very interesting dynamic inside the film. Overall, I'm really excited for it. Taylor Russell, someone who I feel like could be like a dark horse in a different year for a Best Actress nomination. This year's just way too tough, and we'll get into a movie here shortly, which has someone who long ago we thought maybe could get into the race, but with that movie's reception and just how tough this race is now, because let alone Michelle Williams joining the race, we heard this week that Till got really good reviews, at least for Danielle Deadwyler, so she's in the race. We still have our previous aforementioned 5, and then there's other people who could come out of nowhere. Best Actress looks like there's like 7 or 8 people battling for 5 spots. And then on the other hand, for Best Actor, we got a big 2 and then, or a big 3 now, and then who even knows?
Yeah, it's crazy. And just one last thing on Bones and All. Do you see any world where this could break through to the Academy? Or, because my instinct is that it's going to be far too graphic. But then again, they went with Silence of the Lambs. So what do you think? Do you think that this movie could end up being something?
Obviously, I haven't seen like the movie, so I'm just going off purely speculation here. But right now, this is my pick for that movie that gets a lone screenplay nomination. So especially with how weak adapted is this year, this is my adapted number 5.
That's a fantastic point. I hadn't even considered Bones at All as like a screenplay contender. Wow. Okay.
Because like obviously it's based on a book. I haven't read the book, but I had a friend who read the book, and she told me that kind of what you're saying, it's more like young adult, like that's basically all it is, but it has that one little aspect to it which makes it like different. So I mean, the source material seems pretty like nothing like all too special with it, so I'm really, because this movie got raves out of the film fest it showed at so far, so maybe Luca took a little turn to it, elevated the script and the material to a little bit, and especially this is a movie that's going to have a lot of eyes on it, because Timothée Chalamet and Luca are teaming up again after Call Me By Your Name, and this is a movie I feel like a lot of people will see. It's just like he said, is this going to be too weird? Is it going to be too graphic? Can they get on the level? But with how weak adapted it is, I mean, people out there are still trying to say this movie or that movie, but I feel like Bones and All could come up in the conversation and really cement itself in there as just like a movie that should maybe pop up in other categories, but just because of how tough they are and how niche this movie could be, but a screenplay is something that a lot of people could rally behind, be like, we like this movie, we don't know how much we want to shower it with love, but we'll throw with the screenplay nomination here.
And back to, sorry to interrupt you and bring you back to Bones and All, but we'd moved on to Till, and obviously Danielle Deadwyler, but that's another adapted screenplay. So now that we have some reactions, how are you feeling about Till in general? Are you feeling like this is only Deadwyler? Are you feeling like this could be a screenplay contender? Again, our adapted screenplay field is really, really weak. How are you feeling about Till right now?
So Till is another one in our track of you and I being very low on films that turn out maybe we shouldn't have been so low on, because Till is one I passed up multiple times, like The Woman King, and just felt like, I don't know what to do with this movie, and it looks like Till is what we thought its ceiling could be, where it's Danielle Deadwyler and maybe screenplay. I still personally think that Bones and All could have a better screenplay pull than Till could. I don't know, maybe an actress screenplay pairing is more enticing than a lone screenplay, but right now I feel like Deadwyler should be in my 5. I'm still holding out. At the moment, I have her at 6. I just want to see it for myself, and I don't know if this is like the film fest race where like you hiding a performance up and you just really want to make something happen. This is a very early October release. I mean, Tar is as well, so I can't really use that to its fault. But I don't know. Till is just something that seems like it should be something, but will it be? And I guess that's something that we'll have to see going forward, because adapted this year is going to be a very interesting category, because obviously you have Women Talking, obviously you have Glass Onion, The Whale's probably in there, and then what really can you go with after that? The Sun, maybe. That seems like it's dying. She said, I still feel like Top Gun can make its way in. If Elvis ends up being adapted, that could find its way in. If The Woman King is adapted, that could find its way in. Those are two movies that I've seen conflicting reports, whether they are original or they are adapted.
The Woman King is original for sure.
Okay.
It's not based on anything. It is, they did research of their own and then wrote the script around it.
Cool, because I've seen some people include an adapted, some in original, so I wasn't really sure where to place
interesting.
it.
Yeah,
But
they must be misinformed. I think it's 100% original. I'm not sure about Elvis, though.
Because Elvis, I think on Gold Derby is listed as adapted, but when we saw the movie earlier this year, we looked in like the Wikipedia and its credits had it like not based on anything. So that is a little confusing, but I'm sure we'll get answers here soon. But so that's how I feel about adapted. Real quick before we dive into our first movie, which is another movie that we were lower on, but maybe we were supposed to be lower on. Do you have any thoughts about Till or Bones and All for those categories?
I think you summed up Bones and All really well. I think with Till, I am actually surprised that this is getting some really good notices. And I think that the reason why I was so low on it was because there were so many red flags around it. At the very beginning of the year, I did have this in my Best Picture 10. I had it extremely high up, and the reason I had it extremely high up was because I had a lot of faith in the director, Chinonye Chukwu, who had previously done Clemency, which, even though I wasn't a huge fan of Clemency, it is a beautifully directed film. And so this was giving me like, oh, what if she just improves on what she did in Clemency? And then I saw the trailer, and I really didn't like the trailer, and I saw that it was getting not just the October 7th release, but they were skipping all of the fests except New York, and they were premiering the same week that it was going to a wide release, which is like, that's sketchy. That doesn't sound like they have confidence in it. And I guess I'm having a hard time shaking myself out of that position. I have Deadweiler in my 5, but I have a really hard time seeing it for anything else. Although I'm really glad to hear that the direction is really good, because I think that this director has such a bright future. I'm just still hesitant about this movie, and hearing that it feels like a very standard biopic. Also, that's kind of what I expected.
I just checked there. Gold Derby has Women King as adapted, so that may be where I got that from. But we've seen in the past Gold Derby have stuff in the wrong categories and ultimately go and switch it. So I guess that's something to keep an eye out there for everyone who's doing Gold Derby this year and just doing their Oscar predictions. Keep an eye on Woman King. Keep an eye on Elvis. Are they adapted? Are they original? Because if they're adapted, I feel like both movies could get in. But if they're original, I don't think either of them really has a shot there. Who knows? Adapted this year is just going to be fun.
And what if Netflix successfully campaigns Glass Onion into original?
That would be our second bonehead move by a studio this year after Michelle Williams decided to go lead. But speaking of bonehead, we got a movie that, to me, is just bonehead decision after bonehead decision. I know other people are a lot higher. I know other people are a lot lower. And that is Olivia Wilde's new movie, Don't Worry, Darling. We've heard about this movie for months now. With all of its behind-the-scenes drama, with all of its Harry Styles fans, with all of its Florence Pugh fans, there's been a lot of stuff going about this movie. And ultimately, at the end of the day, my real quick thing to say about this before I hand it over to you is, like you mentioned before in your TIFF roundup about, if you go into a dictionary, look up a word, what movie pops up? And if you look up mediocre, for me, Don't Worry, Darling looks up. This movie does nothing interesting to me. It's just like 5 and 6 across the board outside of Florence Pugh and the score for me. Like, I've seen the cinematography done better. I've seen the costumes done better. I've seen the editing done better. I've seen the story done better. And just, Florence is great. That could be me just being a Florence, like huge fan, just saying she's great in everything. And I love the score here. Like, if this movie was better, I could see a world where this could be a score, because sometimes the Academy goes a little bit more adventurous in that category. But overall, Don't Worry, Darling is just such a mediocre movie, and the discussion around this movie, there's so many other ones that deserve like what is being talked about this movie, all the attention this movie is getting. Like, this isn't a horrible movie, but this isn't a great movie either. What did you think about it? Because I know that you just saw it today.
Here's a film that I spent like the first 5 or 6 episodes of this show, including in my best picture list every week, having it like number 3, at number 4 on like my best picture list. And I feel like something that we need on this show is when one of us like drastically hypes something up like that. And when it's wrong, we have to admit it and be like, yeah, man, I fucked up. And I did. So this is the first official segment of Taking the L. I'm taking it. I was wrong. I had previously been so hyped for it. I think I said that Olivia Wilde was at a place where she's respected enough by the industry after Booksmart that she could get in multiple categories, and that this film had the chance to be Get Out meets Promising Young Woman. It's not. It really is Black Mirror light. But the core concept I find to be intriguing. I find the idea at the core here, which is basically a sort of Stepford Wives reality that these women have been forced into, and the men leave every day to go back to the normal world where they're miserable, and then they come into this perfect, idyllic virtual reality. I think that is it's an intriguing thriller concept. Man, the treatment of it is so bland. Like you said, it just feels so mediocre. I've mentioned on previous shows that I find the worst genre of movie to be horror movies, where the main actor just looks paranoid and scared, and every once in a while will like have a hallucination, and then things go back to normal, and everyone's like, oh, what happened? And like everyone just treats them like they're crazy. I hate that genre, and it's everywhere right now, and this is like no exception. I don't know. I think that there are some things that this movie does well at its core. I would have liked to see more focus on the real world as well. Once that reveal happened, I would have loved for it to stay a little bit more in that real world, to show us the build-up. I don't know. Okay, if I were to write this, I would go the first act would be everything in the fake world. Then at the Act 1 break, Florence Pugh, Alice wakes up and she realizes what is going on. And then it goes back in time and we see all of the events that lead up, and the whole second act is like in the real world, and then she goes back to escape. I don't know. I do think it's an intriguing concept. I think that they just really didn't do it well. Really didn't do it well.
I mean, you kind of described another movie that we talked about last week, which I don't want to say the name of for people who may not have seen it yet, but how the first act is something, and then Act 2 resets the story a little bit, and then Act 3 is it all coming together. Just, don't worry, darling, here's like the big thing with it. Like, I feel like it's a very competently made movie. Like, Olivia Wilde's not a bad director. Like, she knows how to direct a movie. The issue is like what you said, the script. The script, I guess I had never read the initial script, so the script taking something and then completely changing it, but it sounds like it's changing it for the worse. And I don't know, I just felt like there was so much underwritten and just not used stuff. Like Gemma Chan's character has a few motives that you never really learn about. Chris Pine is there, but he's not really doing much. Like, yeah, he's a good actor, but like he's not like given anything to do. And I guess my last question, it will be a 2-part, is just like, we've seen My Policeman. Is he any better in that, or does he have more to do? And then the last question would be awards chances. Obviously, I think this movie has no chance at the Oscars. Other places, maybe, but overall, what's your outlook with Don't Worry, Darling? Because, I mean, you were the champion of it at the beginning of the podcast.
Oh, I was such a big supporter of it, and I've already taken the L. I'm not going to take the L again. So Harry Styles, I didn't think he was bad in this. I didn't. I think that he needs some more training. I think that he, at times, defaulted to anger equals good acting. Is he better in My Policeman? I guess. Like, he's not particularly great in either film, but he's not bad. Like, he's not a horrible actor. He's just, like, he's okay. You know, he suffers from just, like, yeah, he's fine. And in terms of awards chances, like you said, this film is dead Except I do think that it is going to it's going to get a few random critics groups. Like I can see something like the Ohio Internet Association of Online Critics being like, oh, we're going to give this everything. It's going to be nominated for like, or there's a few groups that like nominate like 40 films that will probably go for this. Like this feels like Last Night in Soho, but less, because Last Night in Soho made a couple of shortlists for the Oscars. But Last Night in Soho got a few mentions on like some critic group nominations and then nothing else. And that's how I'm feeling about Don't Worry Darling. I think it's going to get a little bit, but not much. Yeah, this is not the contender that I thought it could be.
My favorite one of those is like random critics groups that you were talking about earlier. Last year, Cyrano like swept Detroit critics group. And this was really early in the season too, like when no one had seen Cyrano. So I remember it's like, oh my gosh, this could actually be something now. Like, yes. And then like the movie had its release date in November, December, January, February. Let's not even do Valentine's Day. Let's do the end of February. I was like, oh, okay, nothing. Just Detroit Critics Best Picture, Best Actor, and like Screenplay winner. But, that's it. You know what? A movie that's going to get more awards than Cyrano did? It's Bros. This is a movie that you get to see at Toronto. You loved it there. Has this movie grown any for you since in the last few weeks?
I do plan on going to rewatch it. It's so funny. But I think I talked about it on the previous episode. I want to hear what you think about this movie.
So I want to start this off with like a little mini rant, and this kind of feeds to Don't Worry Darling, and this feeds to the next movie we'll talk about. But I'm really I don't get annoyed at other people's opinions a lot, but there's one thing that really annoys me about other people's opinions, and that's just people who make their minds up about movies before even seeing them. And Bros is an example because people see two guys kissing, two guys in a relationship. They're like, no, I don't want to see that. Nope, this is bad. Nope, I don't want this. And with like Don't Worry Darling, they had their preconceived notions before, like their Harry Styles super fans, like, oh, best movie of the year, or they heard all the like chatter behind the movie, like, oh, this is a mess. I don't even like care to want to see this. Like, I'm a huge proponent, and like we talked about this last week with Blonde. I feel like people should watch a movie and then shit on it, praise it, whatever you want after. Just point to something that's not just base level, as in with Bros, two guys kissing. Because this movie is great. Everything you said about it in your TIFF roundup was spot on. Really funny. The first hour is like one of the best comedies I think I've ever seen. Hour 2 slows down a little bit with the Judd Apatow problem that you mentioned, where it runs a little bit long, but it's still really good. Billy Eichner's great in this. I love the ensemble here. Everyone's like doing the best. I feel like you really could, and the screenplay's really good. It's just overall the movie's a little long, and I just wish more people gave this movie a shot, because I saw it today, and I think there was like 7 people in my theater, and Don't Worry Darling sold out at the same time. And I was just like, oh, come see this movie. It's so good. It's so funny. I really hope this is one that's like a word of mouth hit. And maybe it doesn't make a lot of money at the box office, but can be a huge movie once it hits a stream or once it hits video on demand or something like that, where more people can lay eyes. And maybe not have a revival to like the level that Coda had last year, but just a revival where more people are talking about this than who are talking about it now.
Yeah, totally. Well, okay, I want to go back to your point, your rant there about people deciding about a movie before they actually see it, which is a huge problem. I think that there's a lot of reactionaries online right now who are review bombing. I mean, review bombing has always been a problem, but I'd say in the past couple of years, since the pandemic, it's become a bigger issue than it ever has been in the past. And like Bros had like a 5.2 on IMDb, and that's fucking absurd. And I see it going both ways, actually, because I see a lot of these very reactionary people going online. She-Hulk is a great example of people going on the internet and talking so much shit about She-Hulk. She-Hulk has like a 4.0 on IMDb. It's not that bad. It's not good. It's not that bad. But I think with something like Bros as well, with something like She-Hulk, with something like Miss Marvel, a lot of people hate on it. And then when people say, why are you hating on it? Like, you might be like a racist, or you might be homophobic, or you might be a misogynist. They go, oh, like, just because I'm not interested in a movie doesn't mean like... And what I want to say with Bros is, if you're not interested in seeing Bros, that's okay. You know, you're not a homophobe for not being interested in seeing Bros, but evaluate the reasons that you're not interested in seeing Bros. If you're not interested in seeing Bros because this is an LGBTQ comedy, evaluate that. Look at that, right? And that's the problem that I see a lot of online, is that these reactionaries are feeling more empowered because they see people on the internet saying like, oh, if you don't go see The Woman King, you're a racist, right? If you don't like The Woman King, you're a racist. And that's objectively not true. You're allowed to not like that movie, but evaluate why. Or if you're not interested in seeing that movie, think about why. Is it because it's a female-led action movie? Is it because it's an African historical epic? And with Bros, if you would be interested in going to see a romantic comedy starring Seth Rogen and, like, I don't know, fucking Amy Poehler or something, if that would be something that would, like, you'd be like, yeah, sure, I'll go see that, but you won't go see this, then think about that, right?
Yep.
That's just generally how I feel right now, because there's man, it pisses me off that this is getting review bombed down to like 5.0, because this is a movie that should have like a 7.8 on IMDb. Like, it's a really funny comedy, and it's just the fact that it's about men loving men that's getting people to so up in arms about it. And again, you're not a homophobe if you're not interested in this movie. You're not a homophobe if you don't like this movie. But, like, fucking assess the reason why.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Dude.
I mean, I fully agree with all that, because like you said, I had a discussion with someone earlier today about this, and they were saying, like, oh, I don't really know if I'm interested in it. And I was just wondering, like, why aren't you interested in it? If they said a reason, like, that's a valid reason. They're like, yeah, other people have said this. I'm like, well, if you had said the reason you don't want to see this is because it's a guy loving another guy or they're kissing, because I saw, before I even saw this movie, I saw something like the box office forum on Reddit, and someone was like, this seems fun, but I don't want to go out and pay for a movie where a guy's kissing a guy. I'll just watch it when it comes on Peacock. And I'm like, that's, like, in my head, I'm like, that's the issue. It's like, if this was, like you said, Seth Rogen and changing Charlize Theron, we're not changing Amy Poehler to Charlize Theron to use a movie that came out in a previous time with Longshot. If you go see that movie, but you won't see this one, there's something that you should, like you said, reflect on there. Because, like, yeah, I fully understand if you go see this movie and you don't like it. Billy Eichner's comedy is not for everyone. This movie's very much proud of what it is and wants to showcase that. And I can understand why you may not like certain choices that are made. It could be with the editing, because I had some issues with the editing, especially in certain scenes where it looked like the cuts did not go together or something like that. But, like, if you're saying you don't like this movie for that reason, that's the issue. You're allowed to, like you said, not like The Woman King or not like Bros or the next movie that we'll get into for its reasons. But, like, you have, like, just having a reason, or at least watching, because, like you said, the review bombing for all the Marvel stuff is people who don't even watch this stuff. They're just doing it to do it. And like I said before, yes, maybe I gave Blonde a higher score than most people, but at least other people watched it to give it its lower score. It's not like they're just saying half star because everyone else is telling me half star. And it's not like people are giving Parasite a 5 out of 5 because everyone's giving a Parasite a 5 out of 5. You're going out and you're actually watching it, because I'm sure there are people who give Parasite 5 out of 5 just because everyone tells me to, or The Dark Knight, or movies along those lines. But there's a lot of people who actually go out and watch it. And yeah, there'll be people who don't like it, but they give reasons why they don't like it. They say it's too convoluted. They say it's just not my type of film, or this reason or that reason. That's a real reason. While on the other hand, with this movie that we have here, a lot of people just aren't seeing it because of the reason why they give, which isn't really a good reason. Like, I can understand not wanting to see this because I just don't like comedies that much, or I don't have the money to go out, or I just don't have the time. Those are all valid reasons, but not going because it's a man kissing another man, or it's two men in a relationship is the issue. And it's something that the movie even addresses in itself, because, like, one thing I really love about this movie is how self-aware it is. The first act, especially, like, the first 10 minutes is so self-aware, and I love that. I wish that continued longer in the movie. It still happens in, like, the second and third acts, but those first 15-30 minutes were, like, peak. And just, I would love for this movie to break into screenplay, like, go into awards chances here. Will I think it will? Not after this box office return, but, like, Golden Globes, which we'll get into later, I still feel like this has a shot, because Golden Globes, yes, they do care about box office, but sometimes they'll just nominate something just because they want to. And I feel like Bros is a movie they may want to give comedy, musical, Best Picture nomination, actor, and maybe a song, maybe even a screenplay in a Field of Fire of the Globes, because the Globes can do that, because the Globes can do whatever they want, and that's why I'm happy they're back. But I rambled for a long time there. I want to hear what your thoughts are for its awards chances now that the box office results have come out.
I think Golden Globes, this still has a great chance. You've already covered everything, picture, actor, screenplay, but I want to talk song. Love Is Not Love. What a great track.
This is
what do you think?
It's really interesting to me because you would think, yeah, Billy Eichner doing a song and a well-received movie, yeah, this should be an original song contender. But we saw a movie the Academy loved that was a comedy that had an original song. Nakaname with Borat 2 with Wuhan Flu, and we've seen over the years comedy movies have, Just Look Up last year, and that had big stars attached to it too with Ariana Grande and Kid Cudi, and you've seen them they embrace these movies even bigger than Bros will be embraced, because those movies got, whether it was picture or screenplay or an above the line acting nomination, while Bros is not going to get either of those most likely. And is it going to be able to pull off just the song nomination? And while maybe it could, this year it kind of looks a little bit weak. It seems like there's a strong top two, but we say that every year with song, and then the song ends up being
we don't know the songs yet.
Pretty conformed once you get to the end of the year, because I heard that Till has a song from the person who helped compose the one from Judas and the Black Messiah, so that is now a song contender, along with the songs from Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, along with the Lady Gaga song from Top Gun: Maverick. I'm sure that when the animated movies
Pinocchio.
are going to have songs. So the race is going to heat up here a little bit. We don't, like you said, know many of the contenders yet. So at the moment, I feel like of what we know, it's probably in. But at the end of the year, I don't think it has the legs to get in solely being the alone song nomination for this movie.
Okay, I have an argument for it, but I agree with you. I completely agree. We don't know the song race yet, and there are so many other films that are going to be stronger. But Husavik in Eurovision Song Contest.
Mm-hmm.
That feels comparable to this.
It does. I guess my one pushback would be is that was the COVID year, so it was a lot of less competition. But at the same time, I say that while Wuhan Flu still couldn't get in that year, and Husavik got in over it.
Well, but Wuhan Flu was fully just a joke song. Mm-hmm. That you wouldn't be able to go and listen to that song on whereas Husavik is a nice song, and so is Love Is Not Love.
That's a good
point. Whereas who wants to hear a gravelly voiced Sacha Baron Cohen rattling on about conspiracy theories? Good point. I was surprised that song was even eligible for that. Mm-hmm. Because it felt like a gag rather than a song, whereas Love Is Not Love is the emotional core of the movie. Anyways, let's move to our next film right here. Our next two are not very big contenders, so we can kind of move through them a little bit quicker. Bros was the greatest rom-com of the past few years. And going from that, how about the greatest beer run ever?
Yeah, let's go on a beer run, guys. This is one I don't fully take the L here because I never predicted for a lot. This is just one I was excited to see, and I feel this movie is exactly what we thought. It's just a buddy, not road trip movie, but kind of a road trip movie with Zac Efron being a really dumb character at the beginning, who over the course of the movie learns, hey, war is bad, and my sister was right. I can't do a Boston accent, or I would do a really bad one here trying to impersonate him, because a lot of the people in this movie have really bad Boston accents. But this movie is, I think, the least offensive movie of all time, because so many people were going into this movie, to what I was mentioning during Bros. People were saying this movie is garbage, this movie's horrible, this movie's one of the worst of the year before even watching. I'm sure a lot of people who have said that never watched this movie. They just said it because their feelings towards Green Book, or their feelings towards Peter Fairley, or just what the trailer kind of made it look like this movie kind of could be about a little bit. A lot of people just went in with negative feelings. And yes, I will admit, the first 15, 20 minutes of this movie is really bad. For all those people who went to the Regal Unlimited screening of it, the mystery movie, and walked out after 10 minutes, I understand why. Because it starts off so slow. The first 20 minutes until he leaves to go to Vietnam, I think is really bad. But once he gets to Vietnam, this movie is really good. And one of just a really I wouldn't say fun, but just a good ride, and you're down for Efron. When Russell Crowe comes in near the third act, that part I think especially is really good and really conveys what Peter Farrelly's trying to say about this movie. And overall, I think this movie is a very solid 7 to a weak 7. I feel like it's not doing too much while it's still doing a lot. And I just feel like this is a movie that you could easily put on and have no issue with it. Like, this is a very good, like, I'm half watching this movie type movie. Like, if it came on TV, it's an Apple movie, so it won't. But if it did, it would be like the perfect movie for like FX or like TNT to play like on weekends, like just has counter programming compared to like football or something. Like, I don't know. I think this movie's gotten such a bad rep for no real reason at all, other than people don't want Green Book guy to do Green Book again.
Yeah, it's perfectly inoffensive. I mean, I said it in my TIFF roundup as well. It's fine, like there's really nothing wrong about it. I found that the message, I think a lot of people need to hear the message right now, which is that it's okay to change your mind. Mm-hmm. And I think that's, especially as we're talking about with these films that people are review bombing and making their mind up before they see them. It's okay to not be interested in a movie, go see it, and allow your mind to change once it's good. And that applies to so many things, more important than films. But I think a lot of people could learn that lesson from this. And it's a very simple lesson, but I think it's one that a lot of people need to listen a little bit harder to.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the movie, and there's another movie, See How They Run, that came out, and this one I thought was just a good time. Like, it's not trying to do too much, it's not anything special, but the one thing I want to say about this movie, just to really breeze through this real quick, because we mentioned not a lot of people did see this, but Adrian Brody, give this man something. Like French Dispatch, Blonde, See How They Run, he's really good when he's in a movie for like 15 minutes. And I want more Adrian Brody just popping up in random movies, doing maybe just doing a wacky character like he was in French Dispatch or how he is here. And even Blonde, he really doesn't fit in that movie. But just being someone who doesn't really fit in the movies while being the best part about their movies, that's something Adrian Brody's done for me, at least in his like last 3 or 4 roles. So I'm excited to see whatever he has come next. What did you think about this movie?
I thought it was okay. I think it got some good laughs from me, but it feels extremely insubstantial when it's like it's very clearly trying to be a deconstruction and a satire of the murder mystery genre, which is also what Knives Out is doing. But Knives Out is like doing it so much better than what this could ever hope to do.
So those last 2 movies, The Greatest Beer Run Ever, See How They Run, probably have no Oscar chances, but maybe in a long shot world have a shot at like one specific Globe nomination. I know I don't really think that. I don't think you do as well. But
I think Saoirse Ronan for See How They Run could factor into Globe's actress comedy, and Efron could factor into Globe's actor comedy. I wouldn't have a problem with that.
I wouldn't have a problem with either of them getting in myself. I just don't think either movie will have the visibility to even like get close. But we mentioned this last week. We mentioned this 2 weeks ago. We mentioned this last week. We'll mention it again today. We've meant to done this next segment for a little bit now, but it's finally here. The Golden Globes 2023, back on TV. A lot of things can happen with this, but today we just want to more focus on the comedy musical side, because this is the side that doesn't get as much love and attention when it comes to actual Oscar nominations. That's a whole discussion for another day about Oscars embracing more comedies. But today we want to focus on those type of movies, because this year's race for the Globes I think is actually pretty interesting, because usually there's like a set frontrunner winner, but this year I feel like there's 3-4 movies that definitely have a shot to win. Like, obviously I know you have one movie that you think may have a better shot than others, but I think this is a very even race where, like, while I do agree that one has the best shot for the Oscars, I think for the Globes any of them could take it depending on how the voters are feeling that day. So do you want to run us through who the top 4 here are for comedy musical?
Of course, yeah, and also, I mean, the reason we're not covering drama as well is because, like, basically take your front runners that you have for the Oscars, plug whatever one's a drama into drama. Comedy's a whole different ballgame, though, right? So,
yes.
I've got 4 safe contenders here, and then I've got a bunch of ones that I'm like, oh, could this happen? But I've got kind of different stipulations on each of them. So, of course, for me, I've got Everything Everywhere All at Once as a big boy contender right here. I think it's pretty undisputed for the win in this category. I think it's beloved enough. But of course, Babylon is lurking in the darkness with a steel chair. It could totally take out Everything Everywhere, especially from the Globes, because the Globes tend to not go with the bold choice. They tend to go with the safer picks. Then we've also got Banshees of Inisherin, which is also a very safe pick here. I think it's probably going to go comedy, although Three Billboards did go drama, which was a very interesting choice. I actually think that Three Billboards was like even more of a comedy than Banshees is. So I'm going to be interested to see what they do with Banshees here. But I think it's comedy, so we're going to stick with it being comedy right now. And then I think Glass Onion is pretty goddamn safe in this category. So that is a top 4 that feels really, really strong. And what do you think of that top 4, Dylan?
I mean, those are the same exact top 4 I have. Banshees, I think, is a really interesting one because I feel like that we know how Globe voters have been in the past. Obviously, they're being reformed now, so hopefully the same tactics don't work in the past. But Banshees just feels like a movie. Obviously, I haven't seen it, but it seems like if you hit the right amount of voters, because the Globes are a small group, that would just go for that. And like win comedy actor, because I have Farrell as my number 1, and I think if they switch, that really opens up the comedy actor race a lot. But I don't know. This is my top 4. I agree. Everything Ever All at Once is probably the front runner, but Babylon, once this movie comes out and we see what it actually is like, because we've heard just a wide array of reports of what this movie could be, to NC-17, to huge Hollywood epic, to just fun, goofy comedy. We've heard it all. What will it actually be? And I feel like as long as it's 2 of those, it probably could win. Glass Onions feels like the most safe thing here. Like, I feel like there's a world where Babylon gets snubbed. There's a world where Everything Ever All at Once could get snubbed. Glass Onion, I don't see a world where this doesn't get a nomination. And that brings us to everything else. And I know there's 2 movies here that we had some discussion about earlier. Like, what category are they going? Because right now, Gold Derby has them both in drama, but they have a really good case to be here in the comedy musical because we just listed 4 comedies, but no musicals.
Yeah, so before we talk about... So we've got 2 music biopics this year. And the reason why I want to talk about these is because... So the Golden Globes, they made some reforms because it used to be basically if you did any singing in a film, it was going to be in musical comedy. And that led to some like very weird nominations. For example, Inside Llewyn Davis, which I think is one of the all-time great Globes comedy musical nominations because it felt so out of nowhere. That's a film that is very much a drama, but because there was music in it, it was placed in here. Or, for example, like Les Miserables, which, yes, it's a musical, but like that is such a drama, and should it be competing against comedic performances? And so that brings us to, we've got 2 movies here, Elvis and I Want to Dance with Somebody, which are films that very much could be that old-fashioned musical, right? You know, with Elvis, there's a ton of singing, a ton of dancing. It's a film that's driven by music. It's pulsating with music. And I Want to Dance with Somebody. No one's seen this one, but of course, it seems to be like a very upbeat concert movie where we like go from show to show and we see like Whitney just like living it up. But here's the thing. In 2018, they made some changes and basically they rejected both A Star is Born and Bohemian Rhapsody, which both applied for the, they submitted for musical comedy, and the Globes looked at them, said, nope, these are dramas, and moved them over to the drama category. And I believe that, you know, that year, I think the entire actor race would have been different if Rami Malek and especially Bradley Cooper were placed in comedy musical instead. So I'm wondering, I guess what I'm feeling here is, are the Globes going to reject them? Or is Elvis or I Want to Dance with Somebody going to be like Rocket Man, where Rocket Man was a musical biopic and Taron Egerton won comedy musical actor for his performance in it? So I don't know. I feel like I Want to Dance with Somebody. I feel pretty confident that that's going to be in drama, especially because I think it's going to get into some of the darker spots in Whitney's life later in the end of that film. But Elvis feels like it could be enough of a musical along the lines of Rocket Man that it could be here. But I'm not confident in that. What do you think?
I'm right there with you. You use the Rocketman example. I think that's a perfect one. Another one, I know I've already mentioned it once today, but, let's mention it again. Cyrano, that was a comedy musical. That movie feels as like a huge drama, but they're singing the whole time. So I feel like that was the little, let's trade off here. Last year was really light for comedy musicals. Let's bring this in. And I don't know, I feel like both of these have a case for either category. Elvis does have a lot of dramatic aspects, but this movie kind of is funny in parts and has a lot of actual singing, which I feel like could help it, because Bohemian Rhapsody, Rami Malek wasn't actually singing. Star is Born, they were singing, so that kind of negates that argument. But so Elvis is one I could see, because especially I think Baz Luhrmann's all of his movies have been comedy musical. I could be wrong there, so don't fact check me, but I know that Romeo and Juliet was supposed to. Okay, Gatsby wasn't then. Okay, but so Elvis could be drama, could be comedy musical. Who really knows? It's one that I would personally like for both these to be musical comedy, because that's more points for my team. But that's not really what the Globes are thinking about. They're not thinking about how can we help Dylan's Filmball team. So at the end of the day, I currently have I Want to Dance with Somebody in my musical comedy, because I feel like if they allow them to put it in there, Sony will want that there, because it's an easier route for nominations for actress and for a picture, because drama, as we mentioned, is usually just the Oscars main players, and it's a tougher category. Elvis, however, I feel like can do well in either. Just which one? Obviously, both these movies probably want to get in comedy musical. It means easier awards, easier nominations. But over in drama,
that's interesting. We're going complete opposites on that, because that's really interesting. I'm leaning to. I think that Warner Brothers knows that Austin Butler would win no contest in musical comedy, whereas he does have a bit more competition with Brendan Fraser in drama. Mm-hmm. But this would cement him as a frontrunner.
Yeah, you make a good point there. The comedy musical, I guess it would be Colin Farrell versus him, which I think it depends on what voters are there, because obviously we know Banshees has a passionate fan base, but Elvis also very much does. Elvis seems like a Globes favorite. Like, if we were talking about director today, I could see Baz Luhrmann maybe even getting in for Globe director. Will he get in for Oscar director? No, but for the Globes, at least in the past, yes. With the new expanded voter base, we'll have to see. But moving on from those two, I know there's a lot of other contenders here. I mean, there's the aforementioned Bros, and another movie that we both seen, Nope, which we talked about earlier in the year. Can this be comedy? Can this be drama? I mentioned earlier in the year, if this is comedy, I could see getting in for comedy picture, actor, and actress. Today, I don't have it in either of those categories. The category is a lot more tougher than I thought it would be back in July. So Nope is something I don't have in any category at the moment. But is there any other possible contenders that you don't have in your top four that you want to highlight here?
Oh, for sure. I've got plenty. I mean, along the lines of Nope, I have another horror movie that I'm like, could that be considered a comedy? And it's The Menu. And The Menu definitely has some funny elements, but after the whole Get Out fiasco, which was, this is a horror movie that has elements of satire, I'm a little bit hesitant to say that they'll consider Nope or The Menu to be a comedy. Otherwise, I've also got Triangle of Sadness, which I wonder, is it too artsy for the Golden Globes? And I think so. And then I've got Amsterdam and The Greatest Beer Run Ever. Are these films too panned for the Golden Globes? Maybe, but we've also seen music in the past get in. Or stuff like The Tourist or Red, or, the Globes, they don't seem to care about what critics think. And then there's a few others. I've got so many contenders here that I'm like, there's just something against all of them, which is why I hesitate to put anything at my number 5 slot, because I've got a solid top 4 that I mentioned before. But Bardo and Pinocchio, those are both films that would be eligible, but only last year was the first year that international films and animated films were eligible for the main 2 categories, which were drama and comedy. And so these are both comedies or musicals, and could those get in, or is being an international film, being an animated film, going to hurt them? Then I've also got Matilda, which could be panned. We don't really know, but that could be a very strong musical contender for that 5th slot. I've also got Good Luck to You, Leo Grand, which feels like an actress contender and nothing more. Same with Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris. And then I've got 3 films here. This is plenty of comedies that I'm tossing out here to the world. The last three, I'm like, okay, is that too small / too forgotten for the Globes? And that is The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, Hustle, and Cha-Cha Real Smooth. And in particular, Unbearable Weight and Hustle feel like they could be dark horse contenders for an acting nomination.
Yeah, I feel you there with Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent and Hustle. I want to circle back a little bit to your point about Matilda, and that's one that I feel like could pay off for you for the Filmball draft, because if we go back, we mentioned the 2020 season. The Prom is a movie that feels just like Matilda, a very late Netflix musical that breaks out, that got a Best Musical Comedy nomination and a Best Actor in Musical Comedy. So maybe Matilda could do that this year and just switch actor for actress. It's the Globes always have one weird pick every year that carries into over all the categories. And this year, I mean, Bros makes the most sense to be the fifth. But after we saw its box office letdown, it could miss. And that's where something like Matilda could come in, like Hustle with Adam Sandler getting into actor, Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent getting into actor with Nick Cage, or another one which I think could be a long shot here because it made a lot of money earlier this year, and that's The Lost City with Sandra Bullock and Channing Tatum.
Oh, good point.
And another one that hasn't come out quite yet here domestically, but I know is doing very well internationally over in Europe, and that is why am I forgetting the name of it now? It's the one with George Clooney.
Ticket to Paradise.
Ticket to Paradise, yes. That's one that feels like it just screams Globes. They love George Clooney. Why not throw him into actor? Because comedy actor does have an open spot if you look at it a certain way. And it could get into picture as well. And if they love it that much, just give it actress too. Across the board. Lost City feels the same to me. And yeah, so speaking of Lost City, moving over into the individual categories for Best Actress, Musical Comedy, I have Sandra Bullock as my number 5. And this feels like a very no guts, no glory type pick. This was supposed to be her last acting performance for a while until she, popped up in Bullet Train. But her last leading performance for a while. And this seems like a way for the Globes to say, hey, Sandra, we love you. Let's throw you a nomination here in Comedy Musical. Because this is a movie that got over $100 million domestically, has very good reviews.
Wait, it did?
It did. It had enough legs.
Oh my God.
It crossed that. And this is a very well-seen movie. It's, I think, the highest grossing comedy here domestically, depending on how you look at comedy in a while.
Wait, are you telling me that The Lost City made more money than Everything Everywhere All at Once?
Domestically, yes. I don't know about worldwide, but domestically it did.
What the fuck?
Yes, The Lost City was a hit. It opened to 30-some million, and I think it ended up around 104, 105 domestically. So I guess that's more than Everything Ever All at Once worldwide, because that's about what Everything Everywhere has worldwide. But yeah, Lost City, Sandra Bullock, this feels like a movie where it either pops up in all three or it pops up in zero, because this could be picture, actor, and actress for Channing Tatum getting there as well, or it's just nothing. And right now, we're in October, so why not put this at my number 5 for all three of those? And that brings me to number 4, which you mentioned above, which was Good Luck to You, Leo Galland, for Emma Thompson. This is one I'm not as high on, but a lot of other people are. So I'm using more of other people's feelings than myself, putting this into my top 5. Here's where I'm a little bit different than most people. I Want to Dance with Somebody in this category, so Naomi Ackie is my 3. If she wasn't here, we'll get into who I think could get in here a little bit later. But my top 2 is everyone else's top 2. Margot Robbie, Michelle Yeoh. They're 1A, 1B. I don't really have a who I have winning at the moment. I feel like whoever wins the category for picture also wins the category here for actress. I don't feel like they'll split. I feel like they'll go they'll give the award to the same movie in both the categories. However, if Naomi Ackie, I Want to Dance with Somebody is not comedy musical, I feel there's a good few contenders here. I don't think Margot Robbie has a shot for Amsterdam. I don't feel like they'll touch this movie, especially if they're trying to look better. They're not going to have Amsterdam nominated at the Globes. Nope is one with Keke Palmer, could get in, but I just don't see the route to it. So that brings me to 3 that I have just sitting out. The aforementioned Ticket to Paradise with Julia Roberts, The Menu with Anya Taylor-Joy, and my sneaky one that could get in if Naomi Ackie is not eligible, and that's Leslie Manville and Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris. This just screams a Hollywood Foreign Press type movie where it's just a random movie that came out over the summer. They're like, I like this, so let's just throw her in there. Because who doesn't like Leslie
Helen
Manville?
Mirren in the was it The Leisure Seeker?
Something
that's
like
what
that.
It feels like to me. Okay, I'm sorry. I zoned out for most of what you were saying there because I just went on Box Office Mojo and I saw that Everything Everywhere All at Once So The Lost City is in fact the 13th highest grossing film of the year.
Yep.
And Everything Everywhere is at number 23. Guess what's number 22?
Morbius.
I
know, I saw that earlier today, actually, because Everything Everywhere just crossed, I think it was the 70 million here domestically, something along those lines. And the next movie it had to overtake was Morbius, so someone's like, oh, if they re-release it when it gets nominated for Best Picture, it can overtake it. But Morb gang, rise up. Tell your local cinema, put Morbius back in. Go vote for it. Morbius, Jared Leto, Best Actor, Comedy Musical, Golden Globe. That's the end of my rant.
I'm very sorry that I missed a large chunk of that because I discovered that fucking atrocity. Okay, so I'm going to look over your list. I mean, bold choice with Sandra Bullock. You said it's a no guts, no glory. That makes sense to me. I still don't think Naomi Ackie is going to go the distance for this. Not go the distance. I don't think she's going to be in this category. I think she's going to be in drama. So ultimately, I would say I think you're on the right track with it's going to be like Leslie Manville or Julia Roberts or some random just anything. Also, I want to put forward the possibility of Emma Thompson not getting in for Good Luck to You, Leo Grand, and instead getting in for Matilda.
Is he lead?
So, okay, this is a bit of I would say categorically, the Trunchbull in Matilda is not a lead. However, in the Tony Awards, that was campaigned as a lead role.
Okay.
And so, but it's not a lead. Trunchbull is absolutely not a lead. However, I could see a world where they campaign it that way because it's like a big villain role and kind of defines the film. And it's like the adult lead of the film, I'd say, because Matilda is obviously a child.
Yeah.
So in the way that like Meryl Streep was considered the lead of The Prom, Emma Thompson could be considered the lead of Matilda. I'm not going to bet on that though. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, I think you're really onto something with Leslie Manville, Julia Roberts, Sandra Bullock, maybe less so. But maybe I'm just in denial because I don't believe that it actually is. Like, is Sandra Bullock really that big of a movie star that she basically sold 100 million on just her name?
Hey, The Lost City was a lot of fun. Channing Tatum killed in that. Brad Pitt's great in that movie. Sandra Bullock is too. My big case for Sandra Bullock here isn't the movie starness, is that she said this is her last leading role for a while. She is taking a break from acting. I say that as she was in Bullet Train about 4 months later, but she said this was her last role for a while. So this could be a way. I mean, a lot of people talked about Sandra Bullock last year getting in for the Unforgiven, something like that, and that didn't amount to anything. So this could be all hype again, but I don't know. I just have a feeling The Lost City could be that glow movie this year that comes out of nowhere because Bros fumbled a little bit here at the box office and Universal may not put as much energy in it here at the Globes, where Paramount could be the Globe's little favorite this year because Paramount has a lot of Globe-friendly movies like Babylon, like Top Gun Maverick, and like The Lost City.
For sure. Okay. That's interesting. Maybe I'm underrating The Lost City for this, but I'm not convinced. But you've presented an interesting argument. Okay, so I'm going to move into actor. And the first thing I'm going to say with actor is if Elvis is competing in comedy, Austin Butler is the frontrunner, and he is winning for this, hands down. If he's in, he's winning. But I guess I'll go through my other contenders if Austin Butler is not there, because if he is, then this whole list doesn't mean anything. Okay, at number 5, I've got Christian Bale in Amsterdam. Reasoning behind that being, even if the movie is shit, I don't think that the Hollywood Foreign Press will really care all that much. I mean, they might care about rehabilitating their image. They won't nominate Amsterdam across the board. But I think they'll still go with Christian Bale because they're going to want him to attend their ceremony. That makes sense. And then it gives a chance for it to be like, oh, we can get the rest of the Amsterdam cast there. Even if, like, the film's not nominated anywhere else, they can be like, oh, hey, John David Washington, Rami Malek, Taylor Swift, come. Mm-hmm. That makes sense to me. At number 4, I've got Billy Eichner in Bros. This is a bit weaker now that the film has flopped, but I think he's so good in the movie that even if the film doesn't get into picture, I still hope it does. But I think that he has a great chance because this film really is all him. This is such a showcase for him as a writer, as a performer, as everything. He's incredible in it. At number 3, I've got Daniel Craig in Glass Onion. He previously got into this category for Knives Out, which was even less of a lead role than he is in Glass Onion. Because in Knives Out, I would say he was very much a supporting role to Ana de Armas, who is like the lead of the movie. But he is the central character of Glass Onion. And everyone else kind of goes around him. And I've seen some people complaining about that because they were saying that his goofy shtick works best when he is, for the most part, in the background. And he kind of pops in every once in a while to be like, oh, indubitably, I'm going to solve this mystery. Right? Like, people say that. And in Glass Onion, he's the central character of the entire film. And his shtick sometimes feels a little bit grating. I really like him still. I think that he's very good in the film. I think he's getting nominated here because he's 100% the lead of this film. Oh, and that reminds me, what happens if Janelle Monáe goes lead?
If they are lead, they are in. That's what I'll say.
Yeah. I think it could be a Maria Bakalova situation where they go lead in the Globes and then they go supporting at the Oscars. Anyways, back to lead actor. Number 2, Diego Calva in Babylon. We haven't seen this, but it feels pretty undeniable. If Babylon's very strong, he's in. I don't think he has a winning shot, but I think he's in for actor in comedy. Likewise, if for some reason they push Pitt in lead actor at the Globes, he's in here over Calva. And then at number 1, I've got Colin Farrell. He's the strongest at the Oscars, which means he's the strongest here. Again, unless Austin Butler's there. And then some other possibilities. I guess I'm not very confident in any of these, but Daniel Kaluuya in Nope. Is that movie a comedy? I don't know. Zac Efron, Greatest Beer Run. Is the pans of that movie going to affect it? Probably more than Amsterdam, yes. Daniel Jimenez Cacho in Bardo. Is that film going to be funny enough to make it into a comedy lineup? I don't know. I feel weird about having Cacho in the comedy lineup here, so I'm going to say probably not. Adam Sandler in Hustle. Is Hustle a comedy? Have you seen it? I assume you've seen it.
I have seen it. I actually really liked it. I would not be upset to see Adam Sandler get in. I would say it's like a comedy drama like hybrid, like where you could say either and it would make sense. Obviously, like it makes more sense for them to push it comedy, but like it could be either and like there would be no like, oh, that's just category fraud sort of thing.
That makes sense. And I guess this could be a way for them to apologize for not giving him a nomination for Uncut Gems. So that would make sense. And then we've got Nicolas Cage in The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. I think that movie is going to be forgotten by the HFPA. So I don't really have a lot of hope there. Honestly, now that I'm looking at this, okay, if Billy Eichner or Christian Bale are dropped, I think Adam Sandler is the one that gets in.
I currently have Adam Sandler as my number 5. I think a thing that looks very possible now, especially after seeing the box office for Bros this weekend, is Eichner's nomination is here an actor, and it misses picture. Or it makes picture and he misses actor. I feel like, especially with how competitive picture could be, that's just the easy like thing to be like, oh, well, we're kind of what a lot of people are saying about Tom Cruise for the Oscars for actor and picture. Like, oh, we're already awarding him for the producer. Why do we really need to do double up? I don't know. Actor is a very interesting thing because I feel like, yeah, you have the obvious, the top people. I would say don't sleep on my man Channing Tatum from The Lost City. This is one that just screams all 3 categories.
Okay, you know what? I'll watch the movie and I'll let you know if I'm still going to sleep on it. I haven't seen it yet, so
well,
I
get
will
on
have
that. Because I would also say I wouldn't be overtly surprised to see Brad Pitt show up for Bullet Train. Just big name. That's a way to get him there.
I would. That's an action movie. It doesn't. Yeah, it's a comedy, but like they didn't nominate Deadpool 2 here, or like
my whole point was for your argument about Christian Bale making it in for a way for them to avoid the whole like, oh, we're awarding Amsterdam. Brad Pitt, I would say, is a bigger star than Christian Bale, and if you want a bigger name there, they can already
do that for Babylon instead of.
But if they don't push him lead, that was my thing. Like, if they don't push Brad Pitt in the lead for Babylon, I could see them sending him there. I don't know. This is a category where I feel like you have a pretty clear. I would say top 3. I would say Eichner is above Calva, and then Calva makes sense for it to be 4. Just my one hesitance with him is just like, what all is he doing in the movie? And then like, are they going to want to go for like, not that he's a no name, but a lesser name of compared to other people, where you could get Adam Sandler, where you could get a Christian Bale, a Zac Efron, Nick Cage.
Diego Calva's a framing character, like in the way that with A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, you've got what's the name of the guy there? But you've got a main character who is not an exceptional character. He's kind of just there as an audience surrogate through the story. That's Diego Calva in this.
And
so
if that's what it is, that sounds like it wouldn't be a nomination. But I guess we'll see how much they love Babylon. But speaking about how much they love Babylon, let's get into Best Comedy Musical Globe. I'm going to start from the top here instead of going bottom to up, because I think the more interesting stuff is at 5. Because number 1 and 2, like I said before, is 1A, 1B, Everything Everywhere, Babylon. Wherever they go in actress, they go here. They double up. Is it Robbie and Babylon, or is it Yo and Everything Everywhere? We'll find out. Glass Out, wow. Knives Out, Glass Onion, Clear Cut, number 3. There's no way this movie misses. This movie, I think, is the most sure nomination of the bunch, but I don't think it really has an avenue to win unless Netflix makes this their main push and puts everything into this movie. I don't see that happening. I've never really seen that happening outside of when I said, like, oh, this could get top 2 at TIFF, but it didn't do that. Banshees, if it gets pushed in this category, is my number 4. It feels like another one that's pretty safe if it's here, but I don't really think it has a real shot to win unless, like I mentioned before, it's just one of those days where the Hollywood Foreign Press is like, you know what, that Martin McDonough, I like him. Let's give him comedy and let's give him a screenplay nomination and blah, blah, blah. That brings us to number 5. I mentioned before, Bros, The Lost City, Ticket to Paradise. Those all feel like solid random number 5 Globes options where maybe they aren't Oscar players, but the Globes sure do like them. And I agree with you. I think Trial of Sadness is way too out there for the Globes to go. Bardo, and if this was a movie that was like showered in love, yeah, but I don't know. Like, obviously, it's Inarritu, so it's going to be a comedy. Nothing from this movie really seems comedic to me, so I don't know why it would be a comedy other than his past movies are comedies. And then I Want to Dance with Somebody, even if this is in this category, I don't think it gets in picture. Nope, I'm losing faith in Amsterdam. I have it in my 10 just to have it, but I don't think they'll touch it. And who knows, Weird, the Al Yankovic story could get in. Cha-Cha Real Smooth
that'll
could
be
come
going
back.
TV.
Okay, so it's not eligible?
Yeah, it would be going to a TV or limited series.
Cool. So then the menu could slide in, or Cha-Cha Real Smooth, or something, but I don't know. I feel pretty confident in that 6 with Bros, Lost City, or I guess 7. Bros, Lost City, and Ticket to Paradise. One of those is the 5th. Just which one is it? Are they going to go a little bit more out there with the movie stars, or are they going to go with the more like critically acclaimed one?
Okay, if Elvis goes comedy, where does this place for you?
If Elvis goes comedy, I think it wins. I think that this movie is literally if Bohemian Rhapsody could win, I don't know why Elvis couldn't win in comedy. If Bohemian Rhapsody could win in drama, I don't see how Elvis couldn't win in comedy.
What won in 2019 in comedy?
2019 in comedy?
Was it Jojo Rabbit that won?
Oh wait, 2019. Sorry, I was thinking the year before. Yeah, Jojo Rabbit.
It was Jojo Rabbit. It wasn't Little Women.
I'm pretty sure it's Jojo Rabbit. No, it was Hollywood.
Okay. Oh, it was Hollywood. Okay, good point. Okay, Hollywood beat Rocketman.
Hollywood was also, yeah, I can't say that. Yeah, good point. But Rocketman wasn't the Best Picture player, and I think that Elvis is a top 7 Best Picture player and the Best Actor winner, while Rocketman was nothing.
Interesting. I disagree, but that is a subject for another episode.
Yes. Perfect segue.
So anyways, thank you all for tuning into this episode of Fantasy Filmball. Next week, Dylan, you're out of here. You're gone next week.
I got the boot.
Just for the week, you're back after that. But next week, Me and Arno, who was previously on our show during our Filmball draft, the two of us are going to be diving deep into the Best International Feature category by going over literally all of the submissions for the Oscar and telling you what is and what is not a contender. So that's going to be real fun and hopefully very informative because that's a category that a lot of people don't know a whole ton about. So hopefully you tune in. Yeah, this episode is specifically for Dylan to listen to.
Yes, this will be my listen to on my flight back. I'll get to hear Matt and Arno rave about why EO is winning the Best International Feature and not Bardo and not Decision to Leave and not All Quiet on the Western Front. I don't want to hear anything other than EO support.
EO support. I'm going to watch EO again tonight. I'm going to do that. Wow. So you're going to Disney, right?
Universal, close.
Okay. Nice. Well, enjoy. Is this your Halloween haunt?
This is my Halloween Horror Nights. I will get to be there. I'll actually be wearing my Nope t-shirt. Funny enough, at the LA one's the one that has Nope, while Orlando does not have Nope. But gotta represent because it may not get a comedy musical Golden Globe nomination, but it will get worn at Orlando Halloween Horror Nights in October. So I think that's a good trade-off.
Well, I really hope you enjoy, and we'll have you back very, very soon. But until then, my name's Matt.
And I'm Dyl, and this is Fantasy Filmball. Thank you for tuning to this episode of Fantasy Filmball with Matt and Dyl. Keep up to date with us on Twitter at @FilmBall. Subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you prefer to listen to podcasts. We even upload a video format of the podcast to YouTube if you want to see our faces. Thank you for listening to this episode of the show, and come back next week.